see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
And did it just animate?
Mhm.
All right, all. Welcome to hybrid pricing. Thank you again so much for joining us. So let's first acknowledge that historically creating an ideal pricing strategy has not been easy. There are a bunch of reasons for that. First of all, pricing is always hard. But historically, people have tried to build pricing strategies using two primary methodologies. They've used rule-based pricing or data-driven pricing. Now, when we say rule-based pricing, we'll sometimes also say manual pricing methods. This is where the owner, operator, revenue manager is really using rates, manipulating rates to set their perfect pricing strategies based on intuition, experience, etc., and often informed by some market data as well. Data-driven pricing, when we're referring to data-driven pricing, we're really talking about the softwares that emerged in 2014. And these softwares started to be able to do things like look at all the bookings in your market, look at your past performance, look at your upcoming bookings, and understand how to adjust prices, right? The promise is always up-to-date pricing in real time. Now, you all, I wish I could fill out this slide with you. There are pros to each of these systems. Rule-based is very in your control. It's extremely easy to explain if you have an owner what you're going to do with their pricing. It's very predictable, right? You're not going to have a machine necessarily changing your prices unless you set an automation such as a last-minute discount or some strategy that's set, but it's going to be really fully in your control. It's great. On the data-driven side, you have the benefit of, again, being always up to date, especially during COVID times. Market conditions have changed so much that being up to date was increasingly hard. And you'll miss things such as like maybe a new, during COVID, all of a sudden your pet policy became very important because people were staying for longer stretches of time, booking windows shifted. The ability to shift quickly to those things is very much amplified by a data-driven system. It is market informed, which can be great. You can leverage, of course, when you're talking to an owner, if you're saying we're using market data, that's usually a great thing. And it does drive increased revenue. Cons. Rule-based pricing, often extremely manual, and therefore that's part of the reason it's difficult to scale. You need a team to manage rates, and as they're managing rates across potentially hundreds of properties, very difficult to keep that kind of feeling sane and orderly. Really, with rule-based pricing, you have to trust that you and your team are monitoring your market. You're the ones in control of the changes. Data-driven, folks have heard me talk about this for a while now. Historically, it was a black box. These revenue systems have not often published materials. To make it worse, often there's limited control of this black box, and really you need to monitor the model. So in some ways, it shifted the time burden from monitoring your market to monitoring your pricing software. We don't think that's as ideal as it can be. So our goal, and really the goal that some people put to us in the industry after DARM 18 months ago, was like, can we make a better way? And so our goal is really to take the old paradigm of rule-based pricing and data-driven pricing and not make it a binary choice, but to put that choice along a spectrum. And we think it looks a little bit like this. So your new choice with hybrid pricing is you can leverage rule-based pricing, you can leverage data-driven pricing, or really anywhere in between. And candidly, when we started developing rule-based pricing first. We wanted to build a more scalable rule-based pricing system. Our product team put something in front of us that we realized wasn't just a way to flip between rule-based or data-driven. It really was this hybrid pricing option that ended up opening up a whole new fun landscape to play with from a revenue management perspective. So the benefits of hybrid pricing that we're going to try to detail today. First is full control while having access to that upside that you can get from using data to inform pricing strategy. It's data on your terms. That means you get to bring data in when you want it. It's data if, when, and where you want it, right? No longer battling a machine. You get to pull in data. You get to add data when you want it. You'll see that the output is scalable, and flexible is a really important part too, in our opinion. In the old way, you kind of had to choose whether you're going to use a rule-based system or a data-driven system. Owners might change their opinion. You might change your opinion about what you want to do with a listing or a market or any aspect of your portfolio. We wanted to make it one click to switch between any aspect of data-driven or rule-based or anything in between. Flexibility is important. And we think it's a way to attract new owners for a bunch of different reasons, as we'll see. So for the property managers on the call, potentially a new way to market your business and your team's abilities. So as of today, just to be clear, on Wheelhouse, we have 3 ways to price. You can use a fully rule-based system. You can use Wheelhouse with no data. The change is that we've made that really exceptionally scalable to do at a portfolio level. So that's new. We didn't really highlight that in the hybrid launch, but that was part of it. Part 2 is the data-driven piece, right? This is a piece we're always improving, right? Improvements include, we have new max pricing launching this week. Actually, it launched this live last week. We'll announce it probably in 2 weeks to the world, but it's live now. You can use it today. We have a new far future pricing update to the model that we'll be launching next week as well. It's always improving. It's a constant area of investment for us. Our pledge is to continue to be fully transparent there, right? We publish our research. You can audit us. You can export all of our information at any time. It's your data, it's your business. And what we're introducing today, again, is hybrid pricing, which we think is designed around you and really designed with some of the folks on this call. Again, people ask for something different. We're lucky to work with a team of both revenue folks and product folks who were able to build V1 of this, right? Hybrid pricing V1. But thank you so much for your help. And I think that's probably enough for me. Are we ready to see it live? And if chat was working, everyone would probably say yes. So
it does work, so you can say yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm going to hand it over to you, John. Take it away.
All right. Pleasure to be with you guys this morning. I'm going to share my screen here real quick, and hopefully it's the right screen, or you'll see a bunch of notes. Can you guys see my screen? Somebody tell me? All right, cool. So where we're going to start out is some of this stuff. I'm going to kind of recap a little bit of what Andrew was talking to us about in his really gorgeous slides. But, you know, for those of you, maybe tell us in the chat if you are a current Wheelhouse user, or if you're not a current Wheelhouse user, might be really helpful. But, you know, when you get a property and you bring it onto Wheelhouse, what you're going to see initially is kind of what the industry has been showing for a while, which is this dynamic pricing generated by our algorithm. Now, we believe and we know that ours is pretty special. It's driven by the Wheelhouse engine, which is absolutely excellent. Our research is published on our website, so you have to do to go to usewheelhouse.com. Take a look at some of the research to understand what we're doing. We have been fully transparent in that regard. But, you know, we've been spending years building this engine to give you direct market-based pricing. Now, in any, you know, we have the capability now with the rule-based and the hybrid to do a couple different things. For one, you can start to modify this this algorithmic rate plan in a number of different ways by choosing between. But let's kind of jump straight to the rule-based option that didn't exist before. Because when we talk to customers, a lot of the time, many of them would want to use this kind of pricing, but they may also have properties or circumstances where they need to set their own rate plan. And they would either do it in their PMS or think about other systems or do it within our system in a more difficult way. You now, with the flick of the wrist, have the capability to build your own rate plan from scratch. I just switched this so it's just a flat line. And now when you choose any of these, you can build out things like seasonality, day of the week relationships. You can still choose to use parts of the engine to inform this as you're building it, but you can build it all the way from scratch. Now, I have a rate plan that I've built out so that you don't have to watch me type in a bunch of different things. This started with a general rate position. I have built out a seasonality that fits my expectations. I did make it step instead of being graduated, but you do have quite a bit of flexibility through the system. I have also put in minimums so that I can use the automations in Wheelhouse and use a lot of the other components of the system, which is a key part of hybrid pricing. Even though you're using role-based, you still have access to our tape chart, our rate intervention tools, our business intelligence. And by putting in these minimums, I can use these automations with my controlled pricing to have more to automate the things that I would be doing manually if I were using a role-based system in a PMS. Now, as we start to talk about hybrid pricing, what becomes really interesting is even though I have taken direct control of this rate plan, established the price points that I want to see, maybe built in some automations, I can still choose to utilize the Wheelhouse pricing engine to inform my pricing. And maybe I have an owner who's really strict about what they want, or maybe I have a property that I know really well how to control, or that I want what I want to do in my pricing, but I still want some dynamic aspects because I could use some support. I know that markets are changing. Also, maybe I don't always have the time to look at every property. If I go down here to this demand sensitivity piece, what this gives us the option to do is to take parts of the Wheelhouse algorithm, that reactive model that looks at bookings that are occurring live all the time, that looks at the way pricing is changing. And I can now choose to implement portions of the Wheelhouse model on top of the rate plan that I've developed. So I can go here and maybe we'll just start with 10%. And you start to see that the very structured rate plan that I built using the rule-based systems starts to reflect the market data that we see as well. So maybe just giving me a little extra boost. This still mostly retains the structure that I've built, but I can start to see that dates that the Wheelhouse model recognizes as being very high demand start to pull up a little bit. It stays within the bounds, so I can still forecast or tell people what I'm doing, but I'm getting that extra support. And we can do this in any degree. I can start doing, 25%, and these peaks start to really pull out. You can use this, which is a snapshot of how that demand model is looking at each individual day as a feedback loop on your own pricing. You can even start to move this over time. So maybe you want to start out with just 10% because you're not yet comfortable with the dynamic pricing and you know your pricing real well. But as you use the Wheelhouse platform, as you get used to the market pricing and you see its success, you can start to increase this over time and really allow the model to act on your own pricing plan and to support your assumptions and your strategy about what you're trying to do. We can even bring this up to 75%.
Yeah, and John, I think a great thing to point out here as well as we're changing these demand sensitivity, the transparency of Wheelhouse here, that we're still showing what our actual demand-based model is seeing and giving you on one screen to see where your rate structures are compared to where we're actually seeing it in demand. So you can choose out individual parts of time, you can choose out individual seasons where you'd really want to leverage that, but still having the full control. We're not having to worry about demand. We're not having to worry about demand dry up and us run under an owner's minimum price that they would like to set up for us. But I think the ability to be able to see where our demand structure is, where our demand curves are at the bottom, and then relating that to where our current pricing structure is really giving property managers full control of their rates again.
Yep. And what's nice about this is all done on the individual listing level. So just like everything else on our platform, you can kind of mix and match to any degree that meets your strategy. Maybe you have a bunch of one-bedroom condos in a single complex that just follow the market, and you're going to have them operate on data-driven pricing all the time. You're going to put your bounds in so that it doesn't go above or below what you want, and you're just going to kind of let it operate. But maybe you have some really key properties that either the owners aren't yet convinced about dynamic pricing, or you yourself just know how to make these sell, and you can build that rate plan out and start to inject the demand base on top of it. And you can have those occurring at any level of the hybrid, on the hybrid spectrum within your portfolio, some fully dynamic, some fully rule-based, and anything in between. So where does this kind of go in the future, I think is a good thing to talk about too, because right now we have this capability, which is super cool, to start to inject the demand-based model into the pricing plans that you have. It's very easy to manipulate within the system. Not only can you establish these across all of our other tools if you come talk to us, but you can also start to leverage the things that a lot of other pricing systems or PMSs in particular don't have, which is how you can intervene on these rates easily, how you can make changes, how you can see your performance. But we also see that every kind of feature that we build for the pricing does work with both hybrid and data-driven pricing. So as we start to build out things like triggers or additional automations, those are all meant to work at any degree of data-driven or hybrid or rule-based.
And John, can I share one more thing here?
Absolutely.
So on our other settings within Wheelhouse, so maybe you can click over to min prices for just a second, John.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wrong one.
Min prices. And this min price is really what's determining that lower pink box, right? And we can go in, we can set minimum prices by day of week. You can create monthly rules, you can create time-based rules. This level of functionality is what we'll bring to demand sensitivity next. So right now for V1 of hybrid pricing, the reason we're saying this is a work in progress that we want your feedback on, it allows you to bring in all the data to the model, but the next clear step for us, which I think we will deliver in the next sprint, so by the end of the year, we'll be bringing that ability to say, maybe you just want to take your shoulder seasons and try leveraging the Wheelhouse demand model or some percentage of the Wheelhouse demand model. Maybe you just want to take vacant nights for the last 30 days and start to leverage the Wheelhouse demand model more. That really fine-grained control of data is where we're going next. And I'm sharing that partly so you all know, like, if you try this out and you have ideas of what you'd like to see with it, we'd love to hear them. Right? We just made max pricing. John, you want to toggle over to max prices? So this, for folks who are on Wheelhouse, you might have, we haven't emailed about this, but you can actually now bring in various max prices as well. We made max pricing much more advanced, so it really emulates the min prices. And so that type of control is something that people ask for, but now we almost think about being able to leverage dynamic pricing like a bowling alley, right? You set great mins, you set great maxes, you run your core pricing strategy down the middle of it, and then you leverage and bring in demand if when and where you want it. Cool. Back to you, John. Thanks.
Awesome. So as we look at hybrid pricing, come have a conversation with us about how to set these up. A lot of the time when we're working with our partners, we're listening to what they're trying to do in their strategy, what their considerations are on their property, and we'll make recommendations. You know, hey, the dynamic pricing, the data-driven is really on point here. You're comfortable with it, let's go with it. Versus, hey, this is a really special property. How do we approach this? This is exactly what the Wheelhouse team is here to do, to help you become more efficient, to be able to use your time better and still maximize your revenue. In addition to that, once you start to put into place, whether it's rule-based, hybrid, or data-driven, you know, a key component of Wheelhouse being a full revenue management platform itself, and not just a dynamic pricing platform, is we do have a number of ways to show you how these perform. And so learning how to read certain graphs about your sales, that kind of thing, will allow you to come back to these listings and start to make the adjustments you need to really maximize your time and your revenue. You know, you see that maybe all your pricing on hybrid is really selling really well, especially those dates that correlate with Wheelhouse spikes. Maybe it's time to turn up the Wheelhouse demand sensitivity and allow it to act more on your model. And over time, you can build your own comfort with dynamic pricing. You can also build it for your owners and come back to them and say, hey, we've been running your pricing plan, but we've been allowing Wheelhouse to operate on at 15%. Why don't we allow that to operate 30 or 40 or 50? Because this is where we're seeing the success.
Great, John. So you just went into the booking tab.
I did. This is a tab right here.
And you're showing pickup. And the pink lines here, the total revenue on a day, that the green dots are the booked in the last 7. You can look at booked in the last 2 weeks.
Right. And then we've also laid ADR on top of it as well, which is a really cool new feature.
You're seeing your ADR on top of it, and then you're seeing pacing down below. And John, can you quickly go over to we got a few more minutes and then we'll hand it over to Ben. Could you toggle over to the portfolio view? Because what we want to show folks here too is that, so if you're in Wheelhouse now, you can look at this booking chart. You might see, and John, why don't we strip out the total and we'll just see a good booking window? Let's see a good booking window for this portfolio, or what's kind of booking well. Do you mind removing the total and we'll just
what do you mean the total?
Well, let's just see the last 7 days.
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah. Strip that out. Boom. Yeah. Okay. So easy way to see where you're not getting any pickup right now. And if you were to toggle over to the portfolio and view, very easy to start making changes here.
That's the other key, I think, is whether you're rule-based or whether you're dynamically driven or anything in between. We know that revenue managers influence their rates as well and intervene. And part of this system is the Wheelhouse. You can choose how much the Wheelhouse model is going to move these rates around for you. You also can very easily still intervene on these rates. So if you're used to doing things fully rule-based and manual, a lot of the time you're having to go into individual listings on the PMS. You're having to first identify where you need to make a change, and then you got to go code all those changes in at an individual level, maybe build out your seasons and stuff like that. With the rule-based through Wheelhouse, you are stripping all of that work out because you can build your fundamental structure and then very easily make changes across your portfolio and use tools like the bookings tab to identify where those changes are going to be. So already, if you are not really planning to use any dynamic aspect, the rule base is going to be an extremely efficient system for you and your revenue manager. Once you start to inject Wheelhouse demand model through hybrid pricing, you're getting the additional support, basically hiring an additional revenue manager to be looking at those demand dates for you, making those decisions, but it doesn't stop you from having control over what you're doing in your rates.
And that's really been our goal with this, is to remove constraints from technology in our industry. Because I mean, I think we all have to choose technology that we can't do everything exactly how we want it. We don't have full control. With giving inside the Wheelhouse platform the ability to look at pickup in one screen, and then I think John's going to show us here in a few clicks of a button how to react to that. We really remove constraints and save time here.
Yeah. And before we move on, let me answer a couple of these questions that I think are relevant to what we're talking about, if that's all right. So Alex asks, is it possible to set it up in a way that whenever demand is high and Wheelhouse sets the price 100% higher than the normal price, that I implement a logic that I want to add plus 50% on top automatically? The exact way you're describing that, Alex, is it's actually very similar to what we're doing here. That's essentially what this is saying is, hey, if Wheelhouse thinks that demand is 200% higher, you're telling us the proportion that you want to be added to your rate plan based on that assessment. So that's really what this demand sensitivity is doing. Our next phase really will allow us to be more granular, where you can set those different kind of proportions and percentages according to the seasonality. So maybe in the high season, you want just total control. So you don't ever want the Wheelhouse model to operate on it. But on the low season and the shoulder seasons, maybe you do want the Wheelhouse model to operate proportionally, like 20 or 30%. That's kind of where the next step goes. Right now, what we are doing is kind of what you're describing there.
We had a question whether you could do this on the portfolio level.
You can set this all. So basically, one thing, this is a minor note. Everything that we do here, let me use a different tab. Everything that we do here can be set on a portfolio level. So if you wanted to take listings and set them, to 50% or change them all at once, one, you can see in detail everything you've set in our system for every listing. You can set anything in bulk. Our demand sensitivity can all be changed through our portfolio views. And you can copy and paste. So if you know that there's listings that you've spent a lot of time on and you have similar listings, you can copy those settings across to others. The last one I think we'll answer initially because it relates to this is someone mentioned this gap and adjacencies. One of these hidden features which we brought out this summer and didn't really tell everybody about. So the question is, how do gap rules apply to rule-based pricing versus demand-based pricing? So the gap rules, like our last minute discount and our far future premium, are automations. They're ways for you to kind of tell the system and put one of your strategies in the system, whether that's discounting based on time, setting a premium based on time. Gaps and adjacencies is one of those as well. And we do have a fully customizable rule set for you. So you can have it look for gaps of varying sizes. You can have different kinds of discounts and have it only apply to certain days of the week. You could say, maybe your gaps during the weekdays, you want to drop really substantially, but on weekends, you actually want the price to go up. That's all capable in the system, and it will work with both rule-based and data-driven. So we will look for those circumstances specific to your calendar and make the adjustments according to your strategy. Of course, we do have one that is developed by our engineering team and our data science teams that kind of recommends some for it. So it's very easy to just take advantage of our gap logic and set it at recommended, more conservative or more aggressive. But you do have full flexibility to build a complex rule set that will work with both. All right.
Great. So what we saw all on a settings level, you can choose between data and rule-based. You can also, across a single listing, as we saw with demand sensitivity, pull in any amount of data you want. We talked about the next evolution there. Everything you saw at an individual level, you can do on the portfolio level as well. And John, could you just show folks too, for folks who are new here, maybe they haven't seen the filters, but if you wanted to, someone asked, could I do it for a group of listings? You can filter by a tag, you can filter by a market. You can, therefore, again, you can go back to that bookings page and you can look at performance on a market level or, by just a group of supply, figure out where there's weaknesses or opportunities in that portfolio and go make really fine-grained control. So if you are using rule-based pricing, that combination of the booking page and the ability to come quickly filter and make rate changes should be the fastest way yet to manage a rule-based portfolio. Ben's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah,
if
I definitely
you or an owner want to bring data in, you can do it on your terms. And Ben, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I would just go ahead. Go ahead.
So yeah, there's quite a bit of functionality. The portfolio we're looking at now too will be, it's actually, you'll see a redesigned one in about 2 weeks for folks who are working with us. So look forward to that. It's going to kind of take the design we put to the calendar and bring it here as well. So lots of changes. JDR, any final words? Otherwise, we'll hand it over to Ben for kind of in practice / owner acquisition. Cool.
Final
Amelia,
words,
what are
Ben.
we missing?
I'm just keeping on top of these questions over here. Just have some logistical answers around. We have one from Stu. How do gap rules apply to rule-based pricing with and without demand-based pricing?
Mhm.
So we could quickly cover that.
I think we did. That's what that was the one I was answering
Okay.
on
cool.
the gaps and adjacencies.
Wonderful.
I think there was a follow-up on the minimum length of stay stuff, which is a separate rule set that we have for gaps. So we do both pricing and gaps and minimum length of stay.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Okay, Benny, take it away.
Keep the
Yeah.
questions coming.
Yeah, definitely keep the questions coming. I'm very excited to be talking about hybrid pricing in practice and in owner acquisition. Me and Andrew and John, we've been talking about this for a long time. It's super exciting to actually roll this out to everybody. But we're going to talk about how are we doing this in practice at Rev and Research, managing 40 clients, and then how are we leveraging hybrid pricing to increase those 40 clients listing count. I think before we really dive in, in our industry right now, we really like to talk about revenue management. I think we do a very poor job of defining what the overall goal of revenue management is. And the overall goal of revenue management, to me, especially if you're a larger property manager, and really if you're a smaller property manager, the really overall goal is I need to have more bookable nights than I did last year. That does two different things. Number one, we're obviously increasing our inventory. And as we're increasing our inventory, we're driving sustainable profitability into the business for the long term. As long as we're having more bookable nights year over year, we are going to be able to drive more revenue into our actual business, drive it more into the bottom line. We have overages and fees that we're able to collect more and more money. And that's sustainable profitability as we kind of come into a time in 2023 and even this fall to where it's a little bit uncertain, markets are volatile. I think this is a great thing to point out as well, is we've had software designed in our space for, Andrew said, for about 7, 8, 9 years. It's been designed for pricing. It has not been built or designed for true revenue management. And what do I mean by that? I think that we can kind of confuse the term of rate management or pricing with revenue management. Revenue management is designed around sustainable ADR and booking those units at the perfect time or at the most valuable time in a calendar. That's not just setting rates and hoping for the best. And we've had software that's kind of guided us. Like we say over here, it's kind of been in a black box of us having to trust a model. Where we've released that at Wheelhouse and we publish our research, but revenue management takes a lot more control. How are we going to perfectly price 100 units for 365 days for 365 days? It takes organization. It also takes a platform that is going to give us back control so that we can continually outpace the market in whatever your KPI, if it's occupancy, if it's ADR, if it's RevPAR, you've got to be priced at a certain point in the market. And this is what hybrid pricing was designed to do. And we're going to get into how we use this at Rev and Research in practice. We use a more rule-based pricing structure during our high-risk times. To define high risk, I consider high-risk times our high seasons. If you're in a traditional vacation rental market, it's 14, 16 weeks, just depending on when schools go back, depending on any kind of, school holidays. I think that we rarely lose homeowners in our business for lack of performance in shoulder season. It's normally the fact that we missed one of those 12 weeks in the summer. We missed July 4th. All of a sudden, we've got a homeowner who's not too happy with us. So what we've done in practice and what we are doing continually getting better at Rev and Research is using what we call guardrails, or like Andrew said, creating that bowling alley, using these rule-based prices, especially when it comes to min and max prices. We want to ensure that we're never underpriced. We want to be able to rest easy. We are able to come and figure out, we're able to set our minimum prices further out. And when I say far out there, so maybe after 90 days, for the summer, I'm not going to take a booking for less than $1,000. Because if I take an $800 booking more than 90 days out, I'm going to get homeowner calls. I'm going to get calls from my GM or my CEO saying, hey, what are you doing taking this booking? There's no way we're going to hit our sales forecast. There's no way this listing can now hit its year-over-year summer goal. However you're benchmarking your revenue management strategies and however you're actually tracking those, we want to make sure that we're not taking anything too low. On the flip side of that, we also want to make sure that we have 365 days of premium bookable rates. I've seen this happen many times of where, hey, a unit may book for $1,400 a night on 4th of July. We're going to go in and we're going to set a more max price based on time, maybe to $1,800, $1,900, because I know that unit is not going to get $2,400. It's just not going to do that. We're giving the property managers knowledge. We're giving y'all guys knowledge back into the platform. We're letting your intuitions, your history, your market knowledge really take over your pricing strategies. We use this a lot during high seasons, especially outside of the normal booking window. For two main reasons there. Number one, like I said, not to take any bookings that are going to hinder our goals or hinder our progress, but also to have perfectly priced rates against the market so that we're continually picking up occupancy. With this strategy now, we have at Rev and Research saved so much time. We can now spend more time in kind of quote unquote analyst mode, looking at market data, looking at our comp sets, deciding making assumptions on what we think that summer season is going to be, and when do we want to pick up occupancy. You have everything built in here. John showed how easy it is to change in just a few clicks of a button. And when we really get into hybrid in practice, we're also able to leverage data to capture the upside, focus on those opportunities. John did a great job of showing how we can not only change demand sensitivity, either at the listing, the group, or the portfolio level. We can also see in that one screen, how far are we off from where Wheelhouse is seeing demand? How aggressive do we want to be on that? And so we're still able to leverage the data and leverage those increases in ADR in those summer times to really drive revenue to our homeowners. And then when we start talking about shoulder seasons at Rev and Research, we kind of look at those maybe a little bit differently than most. I'm looking at those from one way is obviously we want to drive occupancy. Number two, we want to hit our fall breaks. We want to hit our Thanksgivings. We want to hit our Christmases. But we also want to build some padding into either next year, if we're talking about kind of January to spring break. We kind of want to build some revenue padding. We want some good money on the books for those homeowners. We look at fall break as a time to really try to leverage occupancy and revenue to pick up any money that's been lost in summer seasons. And when you really look at shoulder season, the volatility of rate changes from week to week or demand changes from week to week, they're pretty drastic. I see them being a lot more drastic in the summer. So we're going to let that demand sensitivity run a little bit higher or a little bit stronger, because I really want to capture those 2 weeks of ADR kind of bookings in fall break. But then those other 4 or 5 weeks coming after that, I want to make sure that we're still driving occupancy, and we're still driving revenue to the homeowner. We're still driving revenue to the property manager. And my biggest takeaway from this slide is the amount of time that we're saving by setting these guardrails, by setting these min and max prices, and still being able to capture the upside, because now we have time to not have to just be in kind of triage or data entry mode all the time. We can actually look at that data to capture the upside. We can actually look at what John showed us with pickup and be able to move our rates up or move our rates down very easily where we're seeing some softening in demand. The next slide is the impact. I think this is where it gets really cool to talk about. We have clients that are telling us all the time that we're giving them 80 to 90% of their time back when it came to their revenue management strategies, or just implementing a pricing strategy. Our goal here, and I love this, is that we want to be analysts again. We don't want to be updaters. We don't want to be data entry. We want to be proactive in the market. I think the key to revenue management, especially in the vacation rental property management aspect of it, is, to me, the most proactive people are always winning the market. How great is it now, the fact that you have the ability to set these guardrails, to set these rules, that your pricing strategy is built in with automation, but now we can be proactive to market changes. We can be proactive to what's happening in our comp set. And if you've ever listened to me talk about revenue management, you're going to hear me say this a lot, is there's a lot different. It's a lot different service. It's a lot different business if you're just cutting yards and you're just running through and just cutting as many lawns as you can in a day, versus being a landscape architect and redoing an entire yard. Because when we get down to revenue managers, they're artists. We're using data. We're looking at markets. We're looking at comps. We're price shopping. But when you get down to it, we still have to use our intuition based on history, based on how we're feeling. And when we're giving this much time back, the ability to have time to actually think and kind of let what we're seeing marinate, all of a sudden we're artists again. We're not just spending all of our time in data entry mode. I think also, if you're in a place in your business where you're looking to hire a revenue manager, or maybe you need 15 more properties and then it's really time to hire a revenue manager. We don't have a lot of experienced revenue managers in our space. It's a very hot commodity. It's a very compressed market where we're not seeing, there's not an influx of vacation rental revenue managers. Why would you not want to use Wheelhouse to attract the best candidate that you can? And I think of this more the way me and John talk a lot about scaling a revenue management strategy. We've got to have documentation. We've got to have rules built in. And if you're in that position, I would go ahead and start looking at hybrid pricing, building in your rate structures, building in your rules, building in your historical data, so that when you hire that revenue manager, they're coming 6-8 months ahead. We don't have to have 8-10 months of training of who you've hired having to listen to you. These rules are built in and they can come right in from day one and be a true revenue manager. I think that is a great way to attract great talent. Now the fun slide here. How are we going to use this to drive owner acquisition? How are we going to use this as a driver to retain our current homeowners? I think one thing that we need to get way better at as an industry is developing language of how we're actually leveraging our tech stack. Margins in our business are tough. Technology is getting more expensive. And as the property manager, you're taking money out of your bottom line to invest in your client's assets, to invest in your client's investment homes or second homes. We need language around how you're using your entire tech stack. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we do that inside of Wheelhouse. One thing that we want to really point out is when we're talking to owners, especially if you've got somebody coming on that's coming from a new former property management or former property management company, we want to talk about that you're using the most forward-thinking pricing tool in the space, that you're using the best technology in the industry to continually outperform the market and to be the best property manager in the market. And developing this language really professionalizes you to that homeowner. Because the majority of our homeowners, they're not dumb. They've got an investment property. They've got a second home. They just need to be talked to with numbers. They need a strategy. And now with hybrid pricing, not only have we saved you time in building the strategy, you now have more time to communicate that to your current homeowners, and also to build an actual true owner acquisition strategy that doesn't keep getting left behind. Me, John, and Andrew, we've done this at scale. We know we've run operation companies, we run property management companies. We know how busy everybody is and how, we've got to deal with what's right in front of us. I would encourage anybody using hybrid pricing, anybody using Wheelhouse, to carve out some of that time you're saving for an actual owner acquisition strategy, for something that you can stick to. Develop this language when you're talking to these potential homeowners, that, hey, we have full control over your pricing. This is what we're doing it for some people in your condoplex or some people in your neighborhood. This is how we leverage Wheelhouse's demand-based model. These are the rules that we've built, and this is what we're going to do for you to continually drive you historic rental revenue. We also am opening up the conversation there of, maybe some more older school owners, some people that have been in the market for a while, that they know that, they're going to get $500 a week in the summer and that's all they want. We're giving you the tools to be able to have those conversations, to move dynamic pricing into that, to move it in over time, to move it at that individual homeowner's comfort level. Because obviously I think we all know that dynamic pricing is going to drive ADR. It's going to do its job. How do we explain that to a homeowner? How do we get this reluctance to using data-driven away, so that, number one, we're driving the homeowner more money, but then also at the same time, we're driving our business more profit. And also, I love the fact that now all of our Wheelhouse clients have a solution to any question an owner asks when it comes to how are you doing pricing. With my clients that we talk to on a weekly basis, they're getting more and more of those questions. They're getting more and more questioning your rates, questioning why are you priced this way? And why is my neighbor priced that way and that guy priced this way? Now you can take full control over that. You can have the time to pull that data and go, look, this is where, hey, you know what, their ADR, their asking rate, their ADR right now, maybe 375. That's 40% over what we did last year. We're still driving ADR, but we're also driving occupancy. You know, we want to be able to kind of manage both of those, and we're giving you that ability to present a solution to every owner.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Hey, all, we're at time. We really appreciate you joining, first of all.
Did I only go a minute over?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Oh, that's impressive.
I think the thing that probably all of us, Amelia, Ben, JDR, what we'd all share is like, we're the lucky ones who get to bring this to you. We have an incredible product team who we got to build this with and the next generation with as well. And again, we really started thinking we were going to build a rule-based and data-driven solution. And actually the technical work and the design work to make it so seamless to move between each is really, we owe a big thank you to a product team that is really just getting started here too. We do think as you get to play around in the tool, you're going to find a new ecosystem of both how you can leverage revenue management, how you can power a revenue management team, and how you can communicate with owners. Again, that ability to kind of move between very controlled role-based pricing, do it at scale, or bring data in if, when, and where you want it. It really will, I think the longer we all sit with it, going to open up some cool possibilities. And we'd love to hear about how you're using that. So again, I think really kind folks, some of whom are on this call, sat us down after DARM 18 months ago or so, or the DARM in 2021, and said, we need a better way. This is step one. Lots more to build. Thank you for building with us, and look forward to sharing more soon, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Excellent all. Be well. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.